order the Monday, May 20th, 2024 Board of Education regular meeting. If you could call the roll, please.
Mrs. Hartley?
Here.
Mrs. Henners?
Here.
Mr. Rager? Here. Dr. LaFay?
Here. Here. If everyone would please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag is right behind you there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here. This is like the biggest crowd we've had in a long time. This is wonderful. If we could have an approval for tonight's agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Hartley?
Yes.
Mr. Rager?
Yes.
Mrs. Henners?
Yes.
Dr. LaFay?
Yes.
Mrs. Matt?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. At this time, we'll move into our community participation part of our board meeting. Is there anyone that wanted to approach the board? Oh.
Hi. So, I'm Ashley. We've met. Okay, so we started the property naming committee. I don't know if you remember what I discussed last time. We had our first meeting. Dr. Tapman got us all together. So I think there are 8 people on the committee. We have a first draft, I think. Did you submit this?
No, not yet. I'm still getting some digital feedback from the other committee members.
Okay.
Yep.
So once we get digital feedback from all the committee members that are on the current board, you will get this finalized draft of the naming facilities, you know, what has to be included and how you get everything named. The board will meet, the committee, I don't know why I keep saying board, will meet, I think, twice a year to read through submissions. We'll vet those submissions before they come to you for final approval. I think Dr. Tapman would be the one, once the committee meets, to present you with those submissions, and then you decide whether or not they fit the protocol that we have in place. So we're getting somewhere. It's very exciting. So the last time I was here, we weren't anywhere, and now we have an official document. So I really don't have any news other than to tell you I'm really excited that we've gotten this far. And I'm really hoping for community participation in this new endeavor. So, wonderful. Questions?
I'd just like to say thank you. You did a lot of legwork on that. That helped us.
You're welcome. The
It kept
internet
falling down.
helped.
It kept falling down our list of priorities.
I
We got a
know.
lot going
Well,
on.
you guys have a lot going on. So I was happy to do it, and I'm really excited to maybe be a future submitter. So,
Wonderful.
Thank you
so
for
much.
your work.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Right.
So the first item under the audience community comments is acknowledgement of Huron City School retirees. So Jody, in front of you are certificates of staff retiring and entering into full retirement at the end of this year. Also with that is a lifetime activity pass. So that pass will get them and a guest into various school activities, sports and whatnot. There are those little asterisks at the end of, you can't use it at a playoff game because that's regulated by Ohio High School Athletics, and things like the school musical that depends on those ticket sales for revenue is also not included. But so Jody, if you want to run through those, when you speak, when you announce the name, I think then their principal or supervisor is going to come up and just say a few words about the person. Yeah. Wherever you're comfortable. So, and I'll just, as she's moving that way, I'll say that this is a new tradition that we're going to start here in May as far as celebrations of retirees. There was some staff that reached out to Dr. McDonald and I and said, we need to do something to recognize these people. And we talked about it for a good amount of time as far as what is what is something we can do that recognizes them for their years of service, their contributions to our students and our community, while also being respectful of their emotions. So having something on the last day of their service could be hard for them, and so then people shy away from that. So we're hoping that tonight is a celebration of their service to us and a celebration of them entering that next phase of life. And it's exciting and fun. And then as we wind down the school year, with seniors are now done, but students finish the 30th is the students' last day. That they'll go off into that first retired summer, excited and energized. So I'll turn it back over to Jody.
Thank you. We'd like to first recognize Belinda Omer. Next, go ahead.
Oh, am I
Go ahead.
speaking now, or
Go ahead.
Okay, all right, perfect. I'm the first one here, so don't go anywhere, Belinda. Belinda Omar has been a dedicated and dependable, reliable worker and the food service employee for the Huron City Schools for the past 26 years. Belinda served as an assistant cook at McCormick, started in 1998 until she until she took the leap to become the head cook at Shawnee Building when it reopened in 2008. While at Shawnee, Belinda began to flourish using her adaptability as a head cook and brought many ideas and a variety of food choices to her hungry customers. Belinda continued her food service career as a head cook at Huron High School when she moved to her current position in 2021. Over her 26 years, she has happily served nearly 2,000 students, hundreds of staff members, and tens of thousands of meals. I will miss hearing, "Hey, Cece," when I walk into the kitchen, and quickly followed up with a quick smile and a little giggle. We hope Belinda enjoys her time away from the school kitchens, spending time with her family and friends, and continue to spoil her grandson, Mason. Don't forget to apply your sunscreen on your trip to Costa Rica this summer. Thank you for all you have done for the Huron City School students, staff, community, and we wish you the best. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we'd like to recognize Rebecca Hoffman. Okay. All right, we will move on to Laura Hamrock.
I've been very fortunate to work with Laura over the last, oh goodness gracious, 16 years. When I first started in Huron, she was currently working at McCormick Middle School as, I think she was filling the role as 5th grade social studies at the time. And then due to some movement and shifting, she was moved out to Woodlands as the intervention specialist for 4th grade. That's the year that I moved into McCormick. So I was at McCormick for 4 years, and then when we relocated our 5th and 6th grade, I got the opportunity to work with Mrs. Hamrock, and she worked in the role of our 4th grade special education teacher until Mrs. Johnson retired and the 6th grade social studies position opened up. One thing about Mrs. Hamrock is she's very passionate. She has things that drive her, that excite her, and one of those is history. And I couldn't think of a better person to put into that position than Mrs. Hamrock. She has done an outstanding job for us, getting students excited and sharing her love and energy for the content area that she teaches. So Laura, thank you for all your hard work and effort. If there's anybody that is an advocate for the underdog in your classes, it is you. So thank you for that, for always looking out for those that need the support and the help. So thank you and good luck, and enjoy.
All right, next we'd like to recognize Diane Berryhill.
back. Out of our sixth grade staff, we have 4 positions, and out of those 4 positions, we have 3 staff members retiring. So it's kind of bittersweet because when I started as a principal at McCormick back in 04, 05, Mrs. Berryhill was 6th grade language arts, and Mrs. Hoffman was also 6th grade language arts. So they're both going to be leaving this year after working with them for the last 20 years. So every day that I would come into school, they were there. And so that part of our relationship is over. But when I first went to McCormick, we obviously had some work to do. And as we got things rolling and we moved over to Woodlands with our 6th grade staff, a response to intervention program started rolling out, which we call IST. And we needed staff members that were excited about working with students to find areas where they are struggling and to put interventions in place to help them be successful. And Mrs. Berryhill just embraced that position. She, for I don't know how many years you were our IST coach for 6th grade, just did a fantastic job because her passion for making sure everybody was able to learn and be successful truly shined in that position. So, Diane, this is your 39th year in education, so well deserved. Good luck in your future endeavors, and I really want to hear about the cruise when you guys return. It is going to be very exciting, I think, and enjoy it. So thank you.
And then Steve Kamala was unable to join us this evening, and Vani Raznick was also unable to join us this evening. So if we can just give them a round of applause in absence.
So as Jody's going back to her seat, I'll just say that, with the closing of Shawnee and the relocation of the central office here at the room 99, we've also had for safety measures, had the main office moved down here for a secure vestibule. And part of that work, there was this vision of maintaining a student space in what used to be the Tiger Union. And so working with that, Dr. McDonald and I talked with Ms. Ryan, Patty Ryan, the art teacher here at the high school, and we said, this is a beautiful wall that we could do like group pictures in front of and those types of different things. But we need someone to have a vision of what it should look like and what represents Huron. And so she was quick to say, I've got the exact perfect student for that. And that's where we have Kaylin Wire here tonight. And we'd like to just recognize her. Jody, if you want to add to that, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh. Well, if you could all just turn around and look at Kayla's incredible artwork behind you. It's amazing. It's just amazing. And what a welcome to people that walk in the doors of our high school. So, Kayla, we thank you so much for your work. And we just have a little memento to thank you for everything you did.
You're not done yet.
So the board caught wind of another Huron educator that we wanted to recognize this evening. And this is our own Sandy Shue. And Sandy, if you would join me up here at the podium. So Sandy was recently awarded Huron Chamber Educator of the Year. And we're all very excited for you. Well deserved. And I just wanted to read a little paragraph that kind of tells why Sandy was nominated and won this award. Sandy Shue is a staple educator and community member in Huron for her work at Woodlands Elementary and her dedication to bring the Butterfly Garden to life, which was established in 2008. She has run multiple programs, such as STAR for Huron 5th through 8th graders, and opportunities for older students to gain service hours. The Butterfly Garden has taken on another meaning as a vessel for community building through the donation of plants, memorializing students who have passed away, and various new after-school programs. The Huron community is thankful for the work of Sandy Shue. And so are we. Thank you.
If you want, yeah.
Okay. So I was asked to talk a little bit about a couple other things that we've been doing. Definitely the Butterfly Garden. I'm lucky to be a part of that or have the opportunity to do a lot of things with it, especially with Shawnee closing and being over at Woodlands. It really opens the door for a lot of things. It's definitely a community builder, and there's been so much growth there in the last couple of years. We've had some great donors as well as families involved in the growth as well as bringing more attention to it. Molly Ryan over at Woodlands, she selected the book, The Secret Garden, which just hand in hand has increased the awareness for the whole school to go out to the garden and make connections to what the garden can offer. Other things that I've been able to be a part of, the Parent Cafe. Thank you to Stacy Hartley, who introduced it to Brian Kuspel and I a couple years ago. We were able to put it together this year. And another, I think, community builder. I love any opportunity that we can bring school and community together. And we did get some good response to those or from those that participated. We had a couple parents that chose to be leaders. So they went through a training and then led the 3 cafes that we had. And I wanted to read one of them to you. This comes from Ashley Tapp, last name Tapp Craig. And I made copies for you guys to look at. Okay. It's a little bit long, so bear with me real quick. To whom it may concern, I was asked to be trained as a host along with 2 other ladies for the new Parent Cafe that was brought to Woodlands School. Truthfully, I was hesitant when I got the email as it is very outside my comfort zone. Tiffany was an absolute amazing facilitator and made it a very welcoming atmosphere. That is who we get for the cafe. She comes from the
Child Care Resource Center.
Thank you. So we did luck out with a great trainer and leader to help guide us through this new endeavor. I was able to attend 2 out of the 3 sessions as a parent host. To be honest, I was not sure what to expect, but the discussions were great. It was relaxed, food was present, and children attended and were able to engage with high schoolers and Mrs. Shue while the adults were able to talk. My own children attended and they loved interacting with the high schoolers and Mrs. Shue outside the classroom. They would ask if we had Parent Cafe every week. The groups this year were small and we were able to sit all together. The other parent host and myself were able to ask the prepared questions to the parents, grandparents, and caregivers that attended. To be able to hear what other people had to say or to see what they were going through was very eye-opening. To see other adults encouraging each other, engaging and sharing stories was something that I found to be almost magical. I feel as adults it is so hard to find your village and to have a place to share honestly and freely without guilt or shame is something that everyone can benefit from. Everything that is talked about is confidential and does not leave the room. It is a place adults can come and relax and talk to other adults. Building a supportive community like that or like this can indeed be magical and incredibly beneficial for everyone involved. My hope for the Parent Cafe is to grow and for more people to feel comfortable participating. Initiatives like this can have a profound impact on the community by fostering connections and support networks. My mouth is so dry right now, I don't know why. Perhaps spreading the word about the positive experience others have had could help attract more attendees in the future. Respectfully, Ashley Tapp Craig. So I thought that really brought it all together. So I'm thankful, one, to be recognized, a little flabbergasted as I'm not a teacher, but I do get to teach about feelings and a lot of other things, and this kind of is a nice thing to be a part of. So thank you.
We'll move on now to administrative reports. We'll start with
Yep. So the first one is for Lucy, but I think Ms. Henners, you want to take it from here?
You. I think I need to get that. Let me see. So, for those who don't know, about 2 years ago, the board implemented kind of a new program where we have a student liaison who serves as you can see, like sits literally right next to the board and helps us connect with arguably our most important set of constituents, and that's our students. And so we had never done this before. It was something very few schools have done in the state, but something we learned a little bit about at a state conference and wanted to try here. Lucy Watson was who stepped up to serve. I don't know how long the line was of volunteers. I tend to think it was fairly short, but we're sure glad we've had the chance to work with Lucy. Tonight we're going to present the first ever John P. Jones Student Board Service Award to Lucy Watson. So I personally have had a privilege of having a front row seat to Lucy's high school career. She's run track and cross country and been good friends with my son Nate. And what I can tell you is she's a young woman who set some big goals and knocked them out with a lot of style these last 4 years in the classroom, running. I know there's not much that goes on in the school that she isn't a part of between student council and National Honor Society, teen leadership corps. Specific to our board, the work that she does both at school, she's run different focus groups, both here at the high school and at Woodlands and McCormick, to get student points of view on everything from facilities to student engagement to mental health. So she's done some important work. Next fall, Lucy's going to be attending Miami University in Oxford, as my husband would make sure we noted, and Stacey Hartley would. She doesn't know what she's going to major in yet, but I think those of us who've worked with her on the board know that what path she ultimately chooses, she's going to continue to set those big goals and accomplish them with style. So Lucy, on behalf of the board, we're honored to present you with this award. We have some special cords for you to wear this Friday night when you graduate. By the way, this was named after our late board president, who was really proud that he could start the student liaison program under his tenant. Was really proud of the work that you did for us. We're also proud to present you with a $500 scholarship from the board. So we thank you for your service. We wish you the best and know that the five of us are going to be a support network for you should you ever need us in the future.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Lucy.
Thank you.
Yeah, what am I doing? Everybody else moved. It's too late. I'm definitely in it.
Okay, so as my last report, we're gonna initiate our newest school board member, who's Grant Bauer. If you want to come up. So I'm so excited for Grant for this because Grant is seriously one of the kindest people in our school. He tries so hard in everything he does, and I know he's so looking forward to this role. He would come back after every board meeting and text me and be like, "Thank you so much for letting me come. I love it so much." So when it came to me picking someone, there was no doubt in my mind that it was going to be Grant. And I'm just so excited for you, and I just know he's going to be so great in this for the next 2 years. So this is for you. This is your little
Do you have any updates on like the seniors
Well,
parade
we're
and all
done.
that stuff?
Like, we graduated on Friday, and then we're out of here. So.
All right, very good.
Are you leaving this meeting right now, Lucy? You're
No,
like, I'm out.
I'll stay.
And I'll say commencement is Friday at 7. It should be in the stadium, weather permitting. If not, it'll be in the gym. All right, Mr. Carter? All right, we're on it. Okay.
We are on to the treasurer's report.
Right.
Mr.
Yeah,
Lindsay.
just-
Good.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Mike, one more thing. So, thank you everyone for being here. You can continue to attend our meeting if you wish. The fun and celebration is kind of, well, the fun and celebration recognitions have kind of ended. So if people want to take a minute to grab a cookie and then kind of fade away, let's do that. Yeah. But you're welcome to stay too, though.
Yeah. I invited. You can piece out.
I know.
Oh, nice.
Cute, Krista.
Yeah.
I was confused that so many people walked in.
They were all here for you.
There.
All right.
Thanks for all set.
Okay, so in your financial packet, there was the financials through April 30th. We're 10 months in, so that's 83% of the way through the fiscal year. Revenues for all funds were at 99%, so most of our money is kind of coming at this point. And general fund revenues were at 95%. Expenditures for all funds were at 69%, and general fund were at 73%. Donations, there was a bunch of different donations for different things. About $6,700 in there. The third thing I have in there is the contract for Julian and Group for gap services. They have an option for 1, 2, or 3 years. I did the 3 years, recommended the 3 years. It just saves a few $100s, and you're going to do it for 3 years. So there's 3-year contract on there. Okay, the other section is the 5-year forecast May update. Okay, so I put together a little PowerPoint, so I'll click through that as well. But I wanted to start talking about the assumptions. A lot of the wording stayed the same from November. The numbers updated. I had updated it for the recent negotiations that we went through. Insurance, I had it at 13%. It went up 12%. I kept it at 13% moving forward, and things like that. Okay. See if this goes. That's just a snapshot. We're going to talk about each section individually. Just want to throw it up there. Okay, so for revenue, the main takeaway here is line, I'll try to point to it here, 1.01. This is up about, I think it was 900,000 from what we had anticipated in November. So we got a larger increase in that. The other ones were pretty close. I mean, it was definitely a net positive overall. The one thing I did want to remind you guys about is that line 2.05 advances in. So that is an advance in. So I'm assuming last June you guys had an advance out for, and I believe it was Esser. So it looked like, I'm sure you guys have done it in the past. It looks like you didn't bring in as much last year. It looks like you're bringing in more this year. Just wanted to point that out because it was a substantial amount of money. And stop me at any point if you have questions. I'm just going to run through it for you. For expenses, we at this point are projected to spend about $374,000 more than we had anticipated in November. Now, I will tell you that me and Cindy went through a lot of the open purchase orders we have, and we tried to close some of the ones that we know we're not going to use. So that number includes what we spent. So you probably heard me say like, oh, we've only spent 69%. Well, if I include everything that's encumbered for the rest of the year, that's where I kind of get to this point, and that's what I've done. So anything that we have spent or anything that is still open is in the expenses, if that makes sense. So I'm not saying we won't spend more than that, I guess is my point. I'm hoping to spend less than that. The other portion on this is the operating transfers out right here. This 153,501, as of right now, that's what I anticipate we have to transfer to food service and athletics. So I threw that in there. That was an update from November. So this is a comparison of our over-under for expenditures from November to May. I just threw it in there, and I will send you guys this PowerPoint. I kind of worked on it all weekend and then a little bit more today. And then funny story, I had to send it over to James because I had him look at it. He's like, we haven't used that in a while. And I looked, it was actually, Jody is probably the only one who remember. This is from when I interviewed here originally in 2018. I used the same slideshow, obviously changed all the numbers, but he's like, where'd you even get that from? I was like, well, I did a 5-year forecast presentation in 2018. Bottom line, overall, our cash balance is increasing. We don't start to deficit spend until 2027. Previously, it was 2026. It wasn't a lot in 2026, but it was deficit spending in 26. Now, we are deficit spending in 27. It's not a lot. At this point, it kind of looks like it did in 26 before. So another thing we'll have to watch out for is reevaluation year this year. We'll have to see what that does to these numbers. If we go back to the revenue slide, I increased it very small just because you really don't know, and I didn't want to make any assumptions. I know Mr. Chapman, Dr. Chapman and I have a meeting with the Erie County Auditor at the end of this month to kind of try to get a better idea of where some of that's heading. So it could be one of those things where maybe I update this after we have harder numbers, and I'll send it back out to you. So. Ending cash balances. I just threw this on here just for a quick reference. This was our 2023, and this is our May 2024. The biggest is, obviously if you go back and look at the revenue, it went up roughly $1 million a year based on general property tax. And expenses did go up as well, but if you compound that over the years, you end up with this 2.7 million more than what we had in November. I don't know what that's going to look like. I said I'll let you know after we talk in June with the Erie County Auditor, so I'll have more updated numbers for you there. True Days cash. Currently, we are at 155. I've tried to find, done a lot of research trying to find. I've seen anywhere from 60 to 90 is where you want to be located at. So obviously, we're over the course of this whole forecast, we are above that. There's a millage equivalent for deficit spending and what we would need. By the time we start deficit spending in 27, they're saying we would need 0.56. So. And then I wanted to bring this up. This is a reminder. I know we're talking about buildings a lot and everything, but we do have 2 emergency levies, one expiring in 2028 and one expiring in 2029. The one in 2028 is an emergency levy for $400,000, and 2029 is for $2.74 million. So there's just definitely something to keep in your mind. We have to figure out what we want to do with that moving forward. And that is what I have for you, unless you guys have any questions at all. 2 slides. This one?
Does that include Shawnee money?
No, this is general fund money. The Shawnee money is PI. Yeah. So actually, none of that Shawnee money or any PI money is associated with any of this.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Yep.
Is the Shawnee money in Star, Ohio?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. It's pretty good. It's a good interest rate.
Yeah.
Especially for now. So.
The 2 emergency levies that you mentioned in 2028 and 2029, I know that seems like it's, way far away, but, there are things we probably need to be thinking about now.
Absolutely.
Are those 2 levies that could be combined into one?
Yes.
Okay, instead of going 28 and 29.
Yep, and that it'll probably be, we'll definitely have to get together and have probably a meeting about it, and go through all of the options and see what we think will work best. And it's really going to be a timing thing too, with a potential bond levy. Like there's a lot going on. You guys know. So I'll gather some information and some options and send it to you guys just to keep it going, so you know where we're at and where we need to go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all you have, correct?
That's all I have.
All right, we'll move on to item number 7, superintendent recommendations.
Okay, good evening. First I want to do is, last week we had all staff appreciation week, and so PTO helped kick it off and put the end cap on it with a gift to all staff of like a Huron t-shirt, and then they were to wear it on Friday. So PTO has enough that they want to make sure the board members get one too. So
Oh, that's awesome.
grab your size and pass it down, and if we run out of a certain size, they'll work with us to get the right one.
That's so nice.
Yeah, so Monday it was the t-shirt, and then Tuesday and Wednesday we had the board contributed a snack for staff, and then administration contributed a snack, and then the local churches in our area contributed, and then on Friday it was again back to PTO for the t-shirt picture, and it was a lot of fun. And then Woodlands wore those t-shirts. Look for Brian. Nope. Woodlands wore those t-shirts on field day last week as well. So it's a good little celebration and get everyone, in the same uniform. So that was nice. So first I'll start with review of the consent agenda items. So going down the list, we have approval of the graduating class of 2024, and Lucy's name is on there. So she's met all requirements, and we do have one honorary diploma for a foreign exchange student who was with us this year. And then we have the HEA collective bargaining agreement. It's a 3-year agreement that goes into effect August 1st. School bus charter services. So there are times that community entities will ask us for help with transportation. And so the board has to approve those charter services that come with fees associated with it for the cost. So it's not really a profit-making production for the school district, but we do need to cover our costs with those services to those community groups. And then we have school transportation. There are some students with special needs that attend schools outside of our boundaries. And so when our transportation services can't provide that service, we have to contract out. And then the other is Medicaid billing. So we do have a provider that assists us with that. So Medicaid billing for various services, specifically through special ed. So this provider just helps us with the billing process and maximizing our return on that request. The next one is a blacktop contract. So that will be working on the parking lot here at the north of the high school. So the student lot, it's in bad shape. It was really needed last year, and with all the other projects we had going on last summer, we kicked it a year. So this will be a good project as far as it's going to mill different sections, lay new blacktop, seal it, and then stripe it. So they're going to line it. And we're going to make sure that when we do that, oh, there he is, Chad. So Chad's promised that we're going to have, we have the guest spots now. Then we're also going to add 2 or 3 spots for like 10-minute drop off. You know, the kid who forgot their lunch or forgot their, sneakers, their athletic shoes for practice in the evening. And then we're also going to have some striped a different color for staff. So those will be marked for staff, and then students will have the rest of the parking lot. Yeah, the next contract is for Erie County Department of Health Nursing Services. So they've been a longtime provider for us. We had Nurse Wallace retire last year, and so the new nurse came in this year, summer, and she has done an amazing job. So her services will continue with this. She's really, become part of the Huron family, so it's great to have her. There's a disposal of electronic items. There's a couple of pieces of equipment at St. Pete's, so it was purchased through federal grant money that flowed through us, so we just have the board to confirm that. And then we have standard certified personnel items, so some retirements, resignations for retirement, some that you saw here tonight. Some summer services, so tutoring and different intervention services. We do have the employment of the new French teacher, and so she'll be coming with us. And then some extended day services that are driven by the collective bargaining agreement. Item J is the classified personnel items, and so again, 1 resignation and then some reassignments of staff into new positions, and then some summer workers that'll help our regular summer staff fill in those service needs and cover vacation time of our regular staff. And then we have some different consulting services that are being approved. Supplemental. So this is the month where the large group of supplementals gets approved. Most, if not all, fall sports are being approved. Year-long commitments are being approved. The arts as well. And then winter sports are mostly being approved. And then when we look at spring sports, the head coaches are being approved, but we hold off on approving the assistants just because we're pretty far out from that season to start. And so we don't want to approve someone and then they can't make the commitment for other reasons that we have to go backwards. And then the last item is the stipend item. So again, this month is the large month where we're approving people for service into next school year. And those are all standard renewals of services. And then also on the agenda, we have 2 standalone recommendations. One is for the employment of the Director of Activities and Athletics. This is a new position, expanding the leadership responsibilities to cover all extracurricular activities, including arts and athletics, for enriching students' experiences beyond the classroom. The board contributed to creating the job description and helped shape the expectations of this district leader. Posting and recruiting was done statewide, and submissions came locally, regionally, and even nationally. We had some from out of state. The interview rounds included a committee of stakeholder representatives, and those participants provided me insight and perspective of each candidate interviewed. My recommendation is for the best candidate from the pool of applicants. A different posting on a different day may have resulted in a different outcome. Tonight's recommendation is the final step of the process for filling this new position, and I'm excited to have him coming on board. The second standalone item is recommendation for renewal of the superintendent's employment contract. Any questions on the agenda items? Okay. Other items of interest. I'm sure most of you saw in the news recently that a student cell phone legislation has been passed by Governor DeWine. It requires school districts to develop a policy for students with cell phones in schools. I'm awaiting guidance from the OSBA, who provides us with policy guidance, and we will follow the typical first reading, second reading, and then action. So input from stakeholders will be sought during the drafting of this. When we met with the Teachers Labor Management Union, we talked a little bit about this prior to it being signed, and generally, they were receptive to the idea. They do feel that students are distracted by their personal technology, whether it's a phone or the smartwatch. And so I look forward to working with them more on, how do we define appropriate use, if at all, in school? How do we ensure that students still have access to communicate in, in emergency situations or just generally with their family or parents? So more to come on that one. The other is that we're currently in the interview process for 3 recently posted positions. We have a high school math replacement, we have an intervention specialist replacement, and we have a new intervention specialist position. So all of those are in the final round and reference checking step of the process. Here, we did some tonight before the meeting. With recruiting being competitive and candidate pools being small, we're trying to move swiftly in order to secure the best candidate for these positions. So I asked that if the board's available Friday prior to commencement at 7, we could have a special meeting to take action on these personnel items prior to commencement. That way we can secure these hires sooner than waiting for the regular meeting in June. So I think all board members are attending commencement. And so are we available to attend even like a 6:15 special meeting? I mean, I'm asking you to look at your calendar. I mean,
Well, I just want to be sensitive to, we have a board member that has a student graduating.
yeah, so that's why.
And having family from out of town,
If it doesn't work,
Yeah.
then
I'm just thinking, I'm happy to get together like anytime, recognizing you want to move fast on it. I was thinking that we have to do it in a public meeting, and I don't know how available the public is going to be, especially if it's like, I don't know what parking is going to be like if somebody would want to come see the meeting, if the parking lot is going to be full for graduation.
yeah, and that's a fair thought. I do think it's a board business meeting conducted in public. So we do simulcast it, and so there's that opportunity as well. Waiting until June's regular board meeting is fine. I would hate for us to make an offer to a candidate and then they say, well, I now got another offer from someone else, so I didn't get locked in, so I'm out.
If you would excuse me,
Yeah, we only need 3 for a quorum.
I mean,
Yeah. All right, so I'll work with Luann to put out special meeting notice. So I'll work with Luann to put out a special meeting notice for that. And it's really going to be pretty brief because it'll just be the personnel items. And then looking at facility updates. So with consultation from the director of Erie County Board of Elections, it was confirmed that the presidential election, because of the number of ballot issues, is the lowest cost election. In comparison, in May 2025 election is considered a special election. And talking with the director, he estimated that it would cost between $12,000 and $15,000 more than the November election. So I just share that information that I was given. Our construction manager at risk requests for qualifications has closed. Submissions were reviewed and a short list of 3 was determined by a rating scale. The next step is to request proposals from the 3 shortlisted firms, interview, and then select. A pre-proposal meeting is set for May 29th. This provides the firms the opportunity to ask the district questions about the scope of the project. Our architect firm, AVG, will attend that pre-meeting to help with answering design questions. Proposals must be submitted by June 7th, with the 3 firms then interviewing June 11th. Selection occurs after the interviews, and the CMR will assist with validating costs during the pre-bond process, pre-construction, and then lead all subcontractors during the construction process. The recommendation does come before the board for approval. So there is opportunity for more discussions on a CMR in general prior to board action. The next item related to facilities is municipal advisor services. So much like a retirement advisor supports sound financial decisions with investing, a municipal advisor has fiduciary obligation to serve the best interest of the client, the district, when selling bonds on the market. Through consultation with bond counsel, some districts utilize municipal advisors, others do not. There are various reasons to or to not use such an advisor. Those include previous relationships with an established underwriter, confidence and experience in the process, and understanding the market to make informed decisions. In consultation with my VASA superintendent mentor, who uses a municipal advisor for his district's bond process, I was connected with one. He's here tonight, and he's going to provide greater detail when we get down to the new business discussion. He's going to provide more details on the municipal advisor's services and benefits. Any questions about that one? The next one is late last week, Ms. Hartley shared a facility process research study she conducted for 3 districts. 2 of the districts had failed bond issues. The third had a passing bond issue. This gave me pause to reflect on our facility process so far and what's ahead. So here's an extension of the record that she shared with me with our process included. And then lastly, on Friday, May 31st, that's staff's final contracted day. Staff are invited to participate in a programming design process to help better define the scope of the project for each of the 3 scopes of work requested by the board. A new pre-K-12, improvements to Woodlands and a new 6 through 12, renovate the 2002 Woodlands addition, and build new for the remaining pre-K-12 facility need. Those are the 3 options. With an initial draft of these programmings, AVG will be able to provide more specific cost estimates, and I'll deliver those to the board at the June 17th regular meeting. And that concludes my report, unless there's questions.
Okay, I'm so we're kind of are we in,
Just giving his
yeah, but are
report.
we including items 9 with our consent
No.
or 5 to 7?
No, that's a separate vote.
Okay. All right.
Item 9 is a separate vote,
Okay.
and item 10 is a separate vote.
Okay. All right. So we need a motion for approval for items under sections 5 to 7, please.
Mrs. Henners?
Yes.
Dr. LaFay?
Yes.
Mr. Rager?
Yes.
Mrs. Hartley?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'd just like to offer thanks and appreciation for the HEA, for all the teachers, and for the administration of the teachers union for their efforts to negotiate the contract. I understand that those went well, and I'm so grateful that we have a contract that was put in front of us, and I'm so grateful for everything that they do every day, and the way they work with the administration, but most especially with the work with our students. So just wanted to say thank you to all of our teachers.
Item number 9.
Yeah, so item number 9 is the recommendation for employment of Matthew Ayers as the first Director of Activities and Athletics.
Need a motion for
Okay.
Dr. LaFay? Mr. Rager?
Yes.
Mrs. Henners?
Yes.
Mrs. Hartley?
Yes.
Mrs. Matt?
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Do you want to say anything there?
Sure,
Yeah, thanks.
be great.
Yeah, so fun process. Looking at this job, I mean, I'm currently the athletic director at Old Fort High School. Familiar with the SBC, that conference and whatnot. I'm someone who likes challenge. I'm someone who likes to. I don't like to be content with where I'm at. So this position, being that it is not just athletics, but it is also activities, was very intriguing to me. As something to broaden my range and challenge myself and put me in a position to not be comfortable and to learn more. So I'm very blessed to have this opportunity. I'm really excited to get started. So yeah, that's about all I got.
Congratulations.
And need a motion for superintendent employment contract.
So moved.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Rager,
Yes.
Dr. LaFay, Mrs. Hartley,
Yes.
Mrs. Henners,
Yes.
Mrs. Mass.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Excited.
Thank you, James, for
Good thing
your
rolling.
yeah, and thanks for your leadership. And it's good to know, be able to chart the next so many years.
That's right.
I'll turn it back over to you for.
All right, yeah, actually, I'm going to kick it over to Mike to talk about the municipal bond advisor.
Yeah, so Mike Cicina is here tonight, and he has a Bonds 101 slideshow that he had sent to me a while ago, and I believe he refined it for tonight. So he'll present that to you guys and talk a little bit more about what he does and what he offers. This is right. No, left.
While those are going around, I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me in tonight. This is an interesting situation for me because I'm not just honored to be asked to share the 30 plus years of experience that I have in this field with you folks, but I'm more so honored because I am actually a Huron High School graduate. And I am currently preparing our class's 50th reunion this year, to date myself. But we're very, we're committed to the industry, and that's why I am so honored to be here tonight to help you through understanding this process, because it's not easy. It's not something you do every day. For all that Dr. Tapman and Mike do, they don't do this. Okay, so you really kind of, I'm going to hopefully get to the conclusion where you really do need this sort of a service, but I'm going to give you the reasons why. Just a little more about the firm. I started this firm back in 2002, one of the first ex-bankers to do this in Ohio. And so it's been over 20 years that we've been doing it. Having been a banker for 11 years prior to that, I know how bankers behave. And 20 years since, kind of working with bankers, I know how bankers behave. And it's that we need them. I'll start off by explaining how we need them. But it's been 20 years. In just a little more background on myself, worked for a couple of large accounting firms, Price Waterhouse to name one, City of Cleveland. The banking firm was A.G. Edwards, which it was bought out by a few other firms, and then ended up on my own here with my team. As a throwback to the honor of being from and part of the community, we have made I think a notable effort to include Huron High School graduates as interns for us. We've been unlucky enough so far to actually hire one because they all go and do something more interesting, I guess. But they do all say that having our line on their resume, our experience on their resume, always gets them in the door. So it's kind of interesting. Folks like Brian Bolenbacher, Joey Bogdan, currently Lee Santosi is working with us. Actually, this summer, she interned with us last summer. This summer, she's actually getting credit for interning with us. Joe Rainey. So we always reach back to this community, try to find folks that can get exposed to what it is we do and hopefully help them in their careers. But to the meat of the issue, when you do a bond issue, you have bonds that you need to find investors that are willing to give you invest in this district, in the bonds that you have. The only way to get to those investors based on our financial markets and government regulations is to basically work with some financial institution that is registered and has the workforce, the sales force that can connect the district with investors. Okay, but the thing to remember about underwriters is they are salesmen. They're selling bonds. Okay, and to sell the bonds, they have to attract investors. And the easiest way to attract an investor is to put a nice, juicy, high interest rate on the bonds. Okay, so that is not in the district's best interest. And with you know, without being too proud to say this, it's our job to look over the underwriter's shoulders and know what they're doing, know enough to stand toe to toe with them to say, no, that interest rate is too high. You need to be better. Okay. He's not going to be able to do it because it's, you know, he doesn't do it every day like we do. Dr. Tapman, same thing. So that's why districts, in our case, over 200 cities, counties, and school districts in Ohio have used our services for that purpose. Okay. But that's the most simple explanation. You need the investors. You got to go through underwriters to get them. There's a number of ways to go through the underwriters, but that's the process. So the other participants in this process, besides investors and bankers, are the advisor, bond counsel, who I understand is Bricker, is your choice, which is great firm. We work with them a lot. And rating agencies is the other key player. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, the district has used Standard & Poor's in the past. We actually helped the district with the original library issue back in the day, and then refunding that at least once, and then some direct placements to make some improvements back in probably the 2000s. Anyhow, we did work with Standard & Poor's back then to help them establish and reaffirm the rating for the district. But it's been a while, so everything's a little stale for Huron. But anyhow, my point in this slide is that all the other players in this have an obligation to the investors. The bond counsel needs to give the investors a legal opinion that says the bonds are legal and you know, worthy investments, but they also provide a tax opinion because you expect to issue tax-exempt bonds in this process to get the lowest interest rate. That's their job. That's the attorney's job. That's Bricker's job, is to give investors that opinion. Okay, the underwriters, as I said, they go out and find the investors for you, so their main obligation is to the investors, and their duty, our duty as advisor, as Dr. Tapman mentioned, is a fiduciary duty. It's the highest legal duty there is, and I'll get into it a little bit later, but we are required by the Securities and Exchange Commission to act in the best interest of the district without regard to our own best interests. Okay, we got to put your interests first. So nobody else on the financing team has that obligation. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say here. The advisor in this role is the only one with sole responsibility to the district. Everyone else, first and foremost, has a duty to the investor, and only secondarily to the district. So the activities that go on in a bond issue, and then this is going to leverage into a few other discussion topics, but pre-election right now, right where we are, talked about, you know, the cost of a November election versus a May election and all that. That's where we're at. I know you guys are going to talking to folks about the options that you have at hand. That's all important. But now, and I think you hopefully have been discussing the election filing deadlines. Okay, it's coming up. August is kind of a drop dead for everything, but there's a few things that, one of the biggest things that needs to be decided in that pre-election process is how much millage you're going to go on the ballot with. Millage is a compilation of three factors, okay? How much, how long, and what interest rate you're going to use. Okay, so that's why having a municipal advisor involved early, you can get an honest, independent assessment of what interest rate to assume in order to determine that millage. With a reappraisal coming up next year, that complicates things. We went through this with Perrysburg at the end of last year. They had a big reappraisal coming, you know, right after the first of the year. They're on the ballot in November. Geez, you know, what do we you know, put 6 mils on when we know it's only going to be 4.5 mils next year because of the reappraisal, or what? So those are all the things that we have to kind of consider when we come up with a recommendation on an interest rate to get that ballot millage, the best possible millage, the most likely to succeed for what you want to achieve with your bond issue. So that's all pre-election. Once voters approve the issue, we get into the post-election process, structuring the issue. Next slide will show you all the different structuring functions and variables that go into it. You need good independent input as to how to structure the issue so that not only does it meet your internal needs, but it also keeps the bonds attractive to investors, okay? It's a balance that needs to be struck. And you need that perspective to be provided independently of the investors until, you know, you need to make it so that it's attractive to them. So that's why in the very beginning with the structuring and the disclosure document, it's really just the district staff, the advisor, and bond counsel that's necessary to develop those things. And again, I'll get some more details in a minute. The disclosure document is basically we call it an official statement. It's the, if you will, stock prospectus. If you can think of a stock issue where you can look at the prospectus, it tells an investor everything they need to know about Huron City School bonds, okay, to make, so that they can make a wise investment decision. A lot of details in that. A lot of it comes from internal files here at the district, from the county, from local economy information. And we help bond counsel gather all that and make sure it's effective information. And then the credit rating process. Again, we've been through with the district before. Knowing the local economy is the most important thing when it comes to talking to rating agencies. There's 4 main rating variables, okay? Oddly, the least of which is how much debt do you have. And the reason it's the least important is because, you know, it's statutorily here in Ohio, school districts' hands are tied. You know, you got to go to voters or you can't. So you got an unlimited tax pledge to issue the bonds, so that's the least important. Third most important is the management of the district. Okay? And that's mainly headline risk. If there's really nasty headlines that an investor might, you know, shy away from buying the bonds because things going on at the district, that's the only reason that might come into play. But basically, rating agencies figure that voters elect good folks to serve as the board elects good folks to serve as administrators, and everything is fine. So that's why it's third most important. Secondly most important is the financials that Mike just went over. By the way, that's a very impressive forecast, and that's not just because I like Mike, but because I know what other districts' forecasts look like. And the not deficit spend for the next 3 years is important. And Mr. Rager, to your question about where the funds are, though, in the 155 days, I think you said, of cash, that, you know, you divide that by 270 working days, and it's well over 50%. And that's the kind of thing that rating agencies look for. They look for high fund balances in case you need those monies for an emergency. Okay, so you guys are staged pretty well at this point. Most important, though, getting back to my point, is the local economy. And the reason the local economy is the most important is because that's where the tax dollars come from. If the local economy is struggling, they figure that, you know, future tax receipts may struggle, your ability to pay the bonds may struggle, and so the bond rating would be affected negatively. We actually happen to serve and have for 30 years served Erie County, served a number of the other school districts in the county, and a number of the municipalities in the county. So we know what Erie County tourism means to local bond issues. Not just tourism, but also the industrial growth that's been happening in the area as well. So those are the 4 things that are important in the credit rating process, and that's what, you know, in fact, you know, our firm can bring some actual experience locally to that process. And then we finally get the underwriters involved when we go to set the interest rates, to sell the bonds and set the interest rates. After everything you've already been through, after everything you're going to go through between now and November, everything you're going to go through between November and, say, March when you sell the bonds sell in an hour and a half. And the reason the bonds sell in an hour and a half is because interest rates are moving constantly. Okay, so you got to get investors interested, and you got them to commit in an hour and a half, basically. So what can happen in that hour and a half is that if you have, my example later is going to be for $76.6 million bond issue, which is one of the ones that I know you were considering. $76 million bonds. At the end of that 90 minutes, you might only have $30 million worth of bonds sold. What do? Well, what happens is the underwriter goes back to the investors and says, okay, apparently we were asking too low of an interest rate. How about if we bump the interest rates up? Will you then be interested? And generally they they negotiate through a process where they get to a balancing act. We actually prefer that initial response because that means we went out way too low, or we went out lower than the market is willing to digest. If we got $140 million worth of orders, that tells us those interest rates were too high right out of the box. And it's our job, looking over the shoulder of the underwriter, to say, you guys blew it on the first ask. Let's work them back down. Very rarely do you ever get 76 million offered and 76 million bought. So it's usually one of the other two. So it's our job in that process to oversee, to make sure that when if they're undersold, they don't raise them too much, and if they're oversold, they lower them the appropriate amount. And then at the end of the day, 2 to 3 weeks after you price the bonds close, and the money shows up at Star Ohio. Hopefully, at this point in time, we can give some advice on how to invest, but it's not really our bailiwick. There's other investment advisors out there that do that. Back to the structuring variables and how a municipal advisor impacts all this. All these things in the middle wheel there are variables that go into the optimal structure of a bond issue, whether it's premium bonds, serial bonds, the call features, when you can refund the bonds, refinance the bonds, what investors do like, what the cost of issuance are that are being included. All these variables can be mixed up and come out the other end that either favor the district, balance the district well with investors, or favor investors. You don't want them to favor investors. You want to reach a balancing act. And again, that's one of our responsibilities. This graphically, if you don't balance all those, there we go. It's just unbalanced and weighted in the favor of investors. And that's not what you want. So now to the nuts and bolts of it. All this stuff is philosophically interesting, and we think about it every day, right? But it comes down to cost, and how can we impact the cost of the financing, total cost of the financing. For my $76.6 million 37-year bond issue example, on the left-hand side, without a municipal advisor, you wouldn't have the municipal advisor fee, but the underwriter could set their fee however they want. He doesn't have anything that he can say other than, oh, I called 4 districts and they said it should be this. And the underwriter can say, well, you want me to work with you or not? This is what it's going to be. So we have the wherewithal working with these underwriters every day to keep them honest. Okay. And then the other aspect, besides just the underwriter fee, is the interest rate. I just explained, oversold, undersold bonds, and how it's our job to make sure that they lower the rates or raise the rates appropriately. If we impact a $76 million bond issue pricing by just 1 basis points in over the life of the bond issue, that's over $200,000. In today's dollars, in present value dollars, that's $100,000 all by itself. That more than pays our fee. And, we want the district to get more out of our services than just paying our fee. So between the underwriter fee savings, and I lowered my example on the right to $5 a thousand, because underwriters get paid per thousand, which makes sense. It's a sales organization. Salesmen get paid per transaction, right? We don't do that. If we do a $76 million issue, we charge the same fee as if we do a $20 million issue. And the reason for that is we don't do anything different. We go through all those processes that I mentioned before whether it doesn't matter how much it is for us. We go through the same processes so that our fee is fixed. But the underwriter can say, oh, well, we did all that work the municipal advisor can do. We're going to charge $3 more for that. Well, $3 on 76,000, not on some fixed. We're trying to get them to think of it that way. Say, okay, you know, you got to pay your salesman $4 a thousand. How about you just fix your management fee and go from there? Well, we don't have much success with that. I have $5 a thousand for the underwriter fee on the with municipal advisor, which frankly I think is a little inflated, because the correct way to go about hiring an underwriter is not just engage the first one that comes in the door. It's to, as you did with your construction manager at risk, send out an RFP, consider all the variables that go into a good solid underwriting firm, and you make them compete on fee. When we do that, and we do that fairly often, it's more like $4 a thousand, maybe $3.50. And I'm just trying to be fair and show the impact that can be had. And then lastly, there's actually 3 different ways to enter the financial markets with a bond issue. You can do a direct placement, which is what we've done with some of the smaller issues for Huron schools in the past. Less than $1 million. You know, the interest rate differential is going to be a little higher because you're getting local banks or Ohio banks involved. You can make them compete, but they're going to be the only ones owning the bonds. One investor. So there's no diversification of risk. Okay, it's that one investor taking on all the risk of that loan. And that's okay, because it's if all the other components are met, competitive direct placement is an okay way to go. Not necessarily for $76 million. There's very few, even Wall Street firms, that are willing to do that. So the other way we could do it is a competitive public sale, just like you buy school buses. Say, these are the specs for our bonds. On Tuesday at 11 o'clock, give us your best interest rate. We, as a municipal advisor firm, probably do more competitive sales in Ohio and make more enemies of underwriters by doing so. But the underwriters then know that we know the market when we're not walking in the deal hand in hand with them. So they have to listen to us. You know, it's a negotiate. That's the last option, is negotiator, where you actually hire an underwriter through an RFP process or whatever, and you go through the whole, at least the pricing process together. You don't have to wait until Tuesday to know generally where things are going to end up. In Ohio, for better or worse, most bond issues for schools over $50 million are done in a negotiated sale. Trying to think of that. We have done some competitively that way too, but actually we are obligated by the SEC and the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board to make sure you're aware that competitive sale is an option. Okay, if you only had bankers coming in here, they tell you negotiated is the only way to go. SEC doesn't appreciate that, and if we're involved, they make sure that we present that option and make sure it's understood among the decision makers. So this is just what I wanted to wrap up with. That there are different ways to do it. I would probably lean towards a negotiated sale in this case, but only if done right through a very selection process of underwriters, which again doesn't really have to happen until after the election, so we know we have an issue at hand. So that's what I was hoping to get across today. I hope I hit most of the high points. And again, for me personally, truly an honor to be here. Of all 200 plus subdivisions that I've served in my career, this is the one that I really want to be able to help out. So, and I can say that honestly. Any questions?
Yes, we really appreciate you being here and giving this presentation. You truly made it understandable, and I appreciate that. I really do. And I guess it is nice to have someone who knows the community and knows the district, giving a presentation like this. And we can get 100 people in here who don't know our district or the community. And I just thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
That is the most rewarding part of the work I do is helping to educate, because it's not it's not an easy subject to understand. It's complicated. So thank you for that feedback. Really appreciate it. All set?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. So the next on the item is new business. I don't have any, but Mr. Jones always liked it listed.
I don't have any. Anyone have any new business they'd like to bring to discussion? Okay. All right. We do not have a need for executive session this evening. What? We can if you'd like to.
I did caffeinate, just in case.
Just as a reminder, we will be having a special meeting Friday at 6:15. Where will that be held?
Here. Yeah.
So they're
So-
not. Where are they staging the graduates?
If we're in the stadium, which we hope to be, they
It's
stage
underneath.
they stage in the.
Okay.
If they're in the gym and they're staging here, we'll just bump into that room
Okay.
and have it open for
Perfect.
the public. Yep.
Okay. All right. So 6:15 Friday. This is Henry's York. And then our next regular meeting will be June 17th at 6 p.m. And we need a motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
Yes.
Do we need to talk about anything on the building stuff from last week's emails? If you had any other tasks that we needed
Oh,
James or Mike to
Sure.
get us, or anybody had any other?
sure.
I mean, they're working on the other numbers, right?
Yeah. Well, I did send out an email to board members if anyone had like a couple actionable items they wanted to bring to Dr. Tapman around facilities. I threw out and got some really positive feedback about forming a community focus group. And Chris gave me a few names. I think Stacy was working on some names, but just to kind of and not make it too big that people can't be heard, but just to kind of start to get some feedback from different age groups in our community, different economic backgrounds of our community, different neighborhoods, to kind of see what's the best way for us to reach people. How do people want to be reached? Are they going to read things? Are they going to listen to things? Are they going to attend meetings? How can we reach our community? The two people that I reached out to, Mr. Tim Sawecki and Mrs. Sharon Barnes, both of them agreed that they would be part of it. And beyond that, I haven't thrown out any other invitations, but I didn't want to do anything or schedule anything until at least June. It's just too busy now. So I will keep everyone informed.
I love this idea because we keep talking about how can we get the community more involved in this. It's like really, I think, engaged. Are you foreseeing that?
I'm hoping that out of this community focus group, we will have someone who will raise their hand to say, hey, I would love to be the levy committee person, or I would love to continue the community engagement for facilities. That's my hope in this, is that someone will emerge out of this group and just feel the calling. So that's my hope. I haven't said that to anyone yet.
I have.
But I'm just hoping, so yes.
So in the timeline that we talked about, in June would be by July 8th, we have to have the
Yeah,
resolution to the board of elections.
That's correct. Yeah. So we could always do a special meeting late June or early July if we felt like we needed.
Yeah, but that resolution is just we're going to proceed with a project of X, but there's no numbers and stuff in that first one, or is there?
So the first one, it does have numbers, so it would have a dollar amount. I have seen some districts, I'm not saying this is a good way to go, but I've seen some districts that pass 2 or 3, and then as they get to the next one, they might, to buy themselves time, they now just pass the one that aligns with one of those 3 that makes sense, right? So, so that could be a strategy if the board wanted to do it that way.
I was just thinking in parallel, you might want to have the stick
Right.
ready and the cable 12 app ready.
Yeah, talking with
So we
bond,
could do that special meeting a week or
yep, talking with bond counsel, they said that really their turnaround time is relatively short. They said a day, so let's say 3 days they would need to, like, you know, what are the numbers? We can get that drafted for you. And it's just they need to know those numbers. So.
we'd have an option to pick one or wait.
I think we agreed, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I think we agreed as a board to continue moving forward like we are going to proceed. Not saying we are, but just keep the momentum going, keep the train on the tracks, and then, you know, when we have to make a decision, we'll make a decision. But I think the more we can keep, like this presentation tonight, you know, hopefully I can get a focus group together earlier in June than later than in June, and just get some feedback. And just all this information will just continue to give us momentum, information, you know, to help us make the best possible choice. Anyone else? Okay. So we need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'm not sure what to do with yourself.
It's still
Okay.
daylight, you guys realize.
Please call the roll of
All in
people or something.
favor?
Yeah.
Waiting for someone to say something.
Go ahead. All right.
Yeah, please do.
Mrs. Hitters,
Yes.
Mr. Rager, yes. Dr. LeFay,
Yes.
Mrs. Hartley,
Yes.
Mrs. Math.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I could see how someone else would like that.
Yeah. Well, help me to,
I have a colleague with Nick and my youngest. So I won't be able to make the program.
Hi, I'm Stacey. Nice to
When
meet
we
you.
talked last time, like I was.
Good to see you again. Hi, good to meet you.
Congratulations. Fourth grader. Chris.
Yeah, I got even coming here.
Baby watch.
Yeah,
Bye, have a good evening.
Friday, I think there's another like appointment where they're gonna say where we at. It's gonna be.
And you know this is your second time.
yeah. Okay. I'll go we park over there and then walk over here and go over there. That's the thing you think about, right?
Yep, it is.